Hello everyone and welcome to another very nice game from the Biel Chess Festival. This one with the rapid time format. Salem Saleh versus Aravindh Chithambaram features a game I've decided to cover due to one particular line in the game. You guys will love it as it's very strange. It's not, I wouldn't say it's extremely difficult to figure it out, but it just looks very interesting. So let's see what I mean by this. Salem with white opens with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6, pawn to c4, knight to c6, and knight to f3. We have pawn to e6 and pawn to a3. Already going into some very rare territory. We have pawn to d5, and here there are a couple of games, or rather there are a fair amount of games that have reached this position. Knight c3 and the pawn to e3, c captures and d5 are all standard moves here. But the move that Saleh plays, knight b to d2, is almost non-existent. Only 3 games in the database, so he wants to surprise Aravindh. And bishop to e7 is a known move. We have bishop to d6, and it is now as of move 5 that we have a completely new game. So okay, let's see what this interesting game brings. And like I said, it's a rapid game, so I will also unlock the clocks for your viewing pleasure. There we go. Clocks enabled. We have queen to c2. Okay, a standard developing move with the queen, also defending that c4 pawn. We have castles kingside, and now pawn to c5, saying that bishop is looking a little bit weird, so let's kick it further back. We have bishop to f4, not interested in going bishop to e7, so waiting for the knight to move from d2 to trade bishops. Pawn to e3, bishop to h6, and pawn to b4. Just grabbing more space here. Pawn to b5 will really dislodge that knight nicely. We have pawn to g6, preparing to go bishop to g7. And here, while you could play pawn to b5, and it's a perfectly fine move, here, just bishop to b2. Continuing development, we have knight e7, as the knight will get kicked away either way. Bishop to d3 and pawn to c6. Now, stopping pawn to b5, we have castles kingside and bishop to g7. So both players just improving their position. It's hard to not prefer white here due to the more control over the center, and also a4, b5 will happen at some point. So pawn to a4, knight to d7, and pawn to b5. Yeah, I said it like, like it was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to happen right away as I'm reading the moves, as I'm playing them. Queen to c7 and queen to c3. We have pawn to f6 and pawn to e4, challenging the structure. We have pawn to e5. And the black's position, or rather Aravindh's position, is very, very difficult here. Point being that the tension in the center and the possibility of opening up the center favors the player who controls more space. And here you could go queen to a3. It's a very nice move. You could also start capturing. E captures on d5 also isn't a terrible idea, because if the knight captures, you will then move the queen to a3, and that knight is not on the best square. At some point you will capture on e5. This will open up the dark square bishop, and if he captures on d4, you will play knight captures on d4, already threatening knight to e6, for example knight to e5, so you control the e6 square. You're going to go knight to e4, and while again very aesthetically pleasing, white is the one definitely to be favored here. But after pawn to e5, not queen to a3, but rather queen to b3. Again, looks interesting because the king is on g8. So king to h8, and now rook f to e1. We have e captures on d4, bishop captures on d4, and knight to e5. Offering a trade, we have bishop back to f1 instead of capturing, and now bishop to e6. Okay, we have knight captures on e5, f captures on e5, and queen to g3, pinning the e-pawn as the queen on c7 is undefended. And again, black could, let's say, capture on e4. Black could start with rook to f4, then rook 8 to f8, but Aravindh goes rook 8 to d8, and this should be met with pawn to b6. It's a very, very useful move. Later on, you will play a5, a6. You will get a pass b pawn, and it's a nice way for white to push. But in the game, bishop to b2 was played. Now d captures on e4. We have knight captures on e4 and knight to f. Sorry, not bishop. Knight to f5, attacking the queen on g3. Queen to c3, a beautiful battery, but unless that e-pawn moves, will not be a very useful one. Bishop to d5, and now pawn to f3, cementing the knight on e4. Knight to d4, and here comes rook 8 to d1. We have bishop captures on e4, f captures, and queen to e7. And we have this position where it's not easy to find a move for white. In the game, bishop to c1 was played. I guess Saleh decided that the bishop will not be very useful on this diagonal. Played bishop to c1 with ideas of maybe bringing it to e3, maybe later on, maybe it can come to g5. But here, there is a problem. And Aravindh did not exploit the problem right away because he found a way to improve it. Sort of improve the exploitation process, but only if Saleh makes a mistake, and he does make a mistake. Aravindh played c captures on b5, and the reply was a captures on b5, which is not the best way to go about this capture. And the question is why? It's not easy, but everything is so perfectly connected that this is the reason why I've decided to show you this game. Have at it. Feel free to pause the video and find the absolute best move for Aravindh while I give you a couple of seconds. Not easy to spot, but bishop captures on b5 was definitely better than a captures on b5. Here, Aravindh played rook captures on f1 with check. And I remember that some of you, or rather quite a lot of you, in the previous video I covered by Aravindh said that this is not Aravindh's rating. It is, because this is rapid. This is Aravindh's rapid rating. So rook captures on f1. We have king captures on f1. If you play rook captures, you just get forked here. So that will not do. After rook captures, we have king captures on f1, and now queen to f8 with check. The only good continuation, because you have to keep an eye on that c5 pawn. Now you have to go to g1 as the knight covers the e2 square. So king to g1, and now look at this, knight to e2 with check. You will win back your exchange. Okay, we have rook captures on e2. This is a must. Of course you don't want to lose the queen. So rook captures on e2, we have rook captures on d1 with check. Again, only move rook d1 if you don't want to give up the queen. Rook e1 captures on e1 with check, queen captures on e1, and now queen captures on c5, also with check. Bishop to e3, and now queen captures on b5. Cleaning up the queen side of any white pawns, and now you have to capture on a7, otherwise black will have two connected pass pawns on the queen side. So bishop captures on a7, and now this is the position. This is what Aravindh found when he played rook captures on f1. It was beautiful, and the white will now have to figure out how to fight against that passed b pawn. We have pawn to h5, pawn to h3, and king h7. We have bishop back to f2. Queen to c4. Also, the problem for Salem is that he's below 10 seconds on the clock. We have bishop to b6, stopping the b pawn from being pushed forward. Queen to b5. We have bishop back to e3. Queen to b3. Putting pressure on the bishop so the queen cannot get activated, and also just preparing to push that b pawn. King h2, and finally pawn to b5. And what would you do here with white? It's still not lost. It's black will push indefinitely, but it's still not lost. How would you approach this position with white? That is also a very interesting question here. So obviously, black's only way of winning the game is to advance the passed c-pawn into becoming a queen, or forcing white to give up the bishop for that pawn. So you have to stop the b-pawn. Putting a queen and bishop to guard the b4 square, that is the way to do it. And then if black wants to somehow get the pawn to b4, this bishop will have to move from g7, get over to this diagonal, and then white queen will also gain some chances of going after the black king, delivering checks, and maybe gaining some sort of a perpetual. So it's not easy, but you can still fight. That is the way to do it. Control b4 and the defend d4 pawn, which is on a light square, so the dark square bishop really can't help out with that. But in the game, queen to d2 was played. Hard to say why. Probably to have access to d7, but d7 is irrelevant for this game. We have queen to c4, now preparing to push the pawn. Maybe the idea was if pawn to b4 right away, then you will go bishop to c5 and just, claim that pawn. But after queen to c4, there's just no good way of accomplishing this. There's no bishop d2, and there's no bishop to c5. So queen to c4 is an amazing find by Aravindh. We have queen to d5, offering a queen trade. and just captures followed by captures, and now pawn to e4. Not the best idea. You have to advance the pawn right away. Pawn to b4, and then if pawn to d6, you will just play bishop c. Sorry, you will just play bishop to f6 to control the queening square. And now, if bishop to c5, you will go b3, force white to defend, and then you will slowly but surely get the black king into the game, but the two passed pawns are winning for black. Here, pawn to e4 was played, and now there are chances for white. King to g3 and bishop to e5 check. And there's only one way to save this game. So again, some endgame magic. What would you play here? How would you say hold this with white? Of course, bishop to f4. That is the only way to hold it, and it doesn't matter what you play, because the black bishop is perfectly placed here, and of course you can just capture if white doesn't want to capture. And if captures on f4, king captures in b4, then it's not a problem. Pawn to d6, and if b3, pawn to d7, b2, and if you get a queen into the game, black also gets a queen into the game, and that will be a draw. So after bishop to e5 check, king to f2 was played, not going for bishop to f4, and now Aravindh is completely winning, and this time he plays it. Pawn to b4, we have bishop to c5, b3, we have bishop to a3, and pawn to b2. He wins the light square bishop, or rather white's dark square bishop, and that is it. Captures, captures. We have king to e3, bishop to e5, we have king captures on e4, bishop to d6, and pawn to h4. We have bishop to g3, pawn to d6, and now bishop captures on h4, and here Salem resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. He's down a bishop, and of course there's nothing to hope for here. It's very, very easy to play this, so he resigned. But yeah, I mean, what a phenomenal idea by, and of course the move that I was talking about, I didn't show it right away, but he had to play bishop captures, obviously, to avoid rook captures. But after he captures, I mean, look at this beautiful geometry. Captures on f1, captures, queen f8 check, knight e2 check, captures with check, captures with check, defending, and now captures again with check, blocking, and queen captures on b5. All that to create a pass b pawn. So beautiful, and even though Aravindh was worse for the better part of the game, there was no position where he could maybe, where Saleh could win on demand, and he was able to endure, he persevered, and then in the end, won a game brilliantly with this maneuver right here. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely played by Aravindh. If you have any other nice games that you would like to see from Biel Chess, use that hashtag suggestion, or any other tournament for that matter. I would like to thank Alan Charbonneau, Seshadri Subramanian, Nick Lin, Paul Hinamund, and Ricardo Cardona Lopez for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check upon your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. I think Las Vegas freestyle starts tomorrow, so we will be covering some of that as well. See you soon.